I just want to give you a market briefing on my observations and what I'm seeing in the employment market and the board search market as we come into early November. It is a mixed bag. The whole year has been a little bit up and down, hard to get momentum. There's pockets in the market that are doing incredibly well and almost booming, but there are a lot of other areas of the market that are not doing well, very flat, hard to get, the momentum, hard to get the sales, hard to get the revenue right. A lot of companies still trying to bounce back from several hard years of COVID and economic downturn, and we are, I believe, in a very flat economic cycle where we have low business confidence and we have low consumer confidence, and those two combined with world economic events which are taking place really add to volatility, uncertainty, and it makes it hard for companies to commit to hiring extra people and so on. I am certainly seeing redundancies and corporate restructuring happening across the market, all walks of life. Even companies that are doing relatively well, they're trimming the fat. They're letting a few hundred people go here and there if they're a large company. They're recalibrating business models. They're recalibrating business units. So there's a lot of corporate restructuring, and we're still in a very volatile few weeks. The next 4 to 6 weeks, we can see redundancies. In the old days, they used to not make people redundant in December, but I think all bets are off. I think you'll see a lot of people released into the market as we head into the end of the year. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, the job market has been flat. A lot of the corporate headhunters said to my clients, quite senior C-suite executives, the market will pick up in the final quarter. It has in parts. For very specialised roles, it's picking up. So, for example, if you were a chief sustainability officer, you'd be inundated with offers for employment. But if you were a sort of a run-of-the-mill general manager, hard to even get a job interview. So there's little challenges like that across the market for senior executives who are trying to execute a career move. So if you are thinking of a move, the reality is it's going to take a little bit longer than what would normally occur. You probably have to double down on your efforts. You have to approach more people, and you can't rely on that advertised job market. The problem when there's an economic downturn, the advertised job market gets saturated with candidates, and you can see on LinkedIn, you see these roles pop up, and within a few days there are 300 applicants. It's very hard to get shortlisted when there's 300 applicants that have just surged into the organisation very quickly. So, the challenge will be you cannot rely on that advertised job market. You've really got to tap into the unadvertised market, which means you've got to talk to your business networks. You've got to go direct to employers. You've got to be talking to the corporate headhunters. And those relationships don't just transpire overnight. It takes many, many months, sometimes years, to forge quality relationships with top corporate headhunters, for example. So the market is flat. There are some executive moves happening, but they're limited, and it really comes down to having a super hot, very much in demand skill set. And, that's a obligation, I think, on all executives now to not rely on what has happened in the past and to really prepare for a different type of future going forward. I think the next 5 years, executives are going to have to recalibrate. Even senior executives might have to retrain, develop new skills, get up to speed, be prepared to change industries, for example. There's going to be a lot more volatility in corporate markets, and you're going to have to be prepared to be flexible and prepared to move. We get a lot of clients who won't move location to secure the right job. In a difficult set of economic circumstances, you have to rethink that. Sometimes you have to go to where the employment is versus hoping the right type of role is going to come up in your particular market. So the more flexible you can be, the more, change orientated you can be, the more focused you can be on building up hot skills, being able to recalibrate to different industries, keeping your networks extremely fresh and current, they're going to be absolutely mandatory. They're not a nice to have, they're a have to have concept going forward. The board search market is extremely busy, so I'm very fortunate that part of my market is very active, lots of roles, lots of recalibration. A lot of companies want to put new people in place for their board early next year. I'm also noticing a lot of organisations haven't done the succession planning, and they're coming to us with briefs to almost replace the entire board. Everyone's stepping off at the same time, or there's a retirement all happening at a similar time, and that's a really bad sign that the organisation did not do the forward planning. So if you are on a board of directors, you should really be carefully looking at your succession plans, your plan A, your plan B, using your advisory boards, your committees to nurture and harness new talent to come through into the operations if required. It's never a good scenario when you've got to go to market and you've got to replace the entire board of directors. You just don't get the continuity, you don't get the history being passed through to the new directors as effectively as it would if it was done in a more professional, more streamlined way. So there are some interesting times, only a very small window of the year left. I always sort of think that once you sort of hit the Melbourne Cup, those next few weeks tend to be very choppy in terms of career moves. Obviously, if you're in interview before mid-December, a job role can still execute over that Christmas New Year period. And so if you are in the market and you're actively trying to move, keep all your efforts up, keep reaching out to people. And you may find there's a little window, as I said, after maybe Melbourne Cup through to mid-December, where people have a little bit more time on their hands and they're able to take a meeting or a coffee with you. And that might be very helpful business networking for you. So put in place your networking strategies at this time as well to make everything come together. But it's an interesting time in the market, a lot of volatility, obviously a lot of things on a global stage that are out of our control. They could have a major impact in the next few weeks as things unfold in the Middle East. I'm hoping and praying that there's solutions that can be found, but my gut instinct would say we're in for very volatile times, very difficult times on a global stage. And so in the Australian context, in the business context, in the employment context, it means you should always have your parachute packed. You should always have a plan A, B, and C, and you should always be very conservative with anything that you're doing so that you can ride out the waves that might come our way. So that's the briefing for October, November 2023.